The essence of adventure engineering with an appetite for the outdoors. Sounds like the perfect advert for the new Turbo Levo, right? Well, those are in fact words from a Specialized advert way back in the 1980s, the first production mountain bike. Now here we are 40 years later and those words still hold true. And the Levo has actually let many people rediscover that appetite for the hills. So this then is more mountain bike than ever before. With a ground-up redesign, this bike has lost a big chunk of weight. In fact, this new Levo is one of the lightest e-mountain bikes in the world. It's nimble, it's fun, and guess what? The range on the Levo has increased by 40%. That is massive. The mood of the Levo remains. It's always been about living for the ride, not riding for the levers, the buttons, and the relays. So you can still be minimalistic or modular. You can either have a clean cockpit or one with displays. The choice is yours. Now look, this didn't all get here by chance. Look at the history, look at the evolution at play. This bike takes a lot of its cues from the recent stump jumper, and way before that from the stumper jumpers that preceded it, all the way back to the 1980s when Specialized produced that first production mountain bike. It was 29 pounds, it was steel, it was rigid, it had motorcycle levers, and it had aggressive geometry. This bike has got massive history. The first Levo was never perfect, the second pretty close. The Kenevo was a brute, built and behaving like one. But Specialized e-bikes have always carried with them that classic mountain bike silhouette. Look at the lines of this bike, it's incredibly difficult to tell apart from one without a motor and battery. The motor and battery are now an elemental part of this bike. When some are still worrying over internal cabling, Specialized have housed a 700 watt-hour battery and 90 Nm motor without even breaking into a sweat. Well, that's not strictly true. They have agonized over the details on this bike. So what is it? Well, it's 150mm travel. It comes with 29-inch wheels, but you can swap those out to 27.5. It comes with a flip chip, which means you can swap out the geometry. And also remember that the weight, the alloy version of this bike is in fact lighter than the current S-Works carbon. Elsewhere, there's no flimsy speed sensor control. All the cables are taken out of the downtube. It's more efficient, it's more powerful, and it's more connected. Now, the motor detail on this bike is incredibly impressive. The new Bros motor in itself has saved 400 grams off this bike, but it's a classic case of clever engineering to save yet another 400 grams by removing the existing cradle from what surrounded the motor, and they've made it an integral part of the chassis. So that means it's now even quieter than before because it's a far tighter fit. And again, it's super smooth and there's no overheating on this bike. It's thermally very stable. But still, it's about the ride, not just about the power. This is still a mountain bike first and foremost. There's some great detail though, especially this downtube, and because they've closed the downtube on this bike, it means there's a far stiffer chassis, which means a more precise ride to this bike. And together with those things such as the flip chip, which means you can adjust the geometry on the bike, plus that reach increase. This is now a far bigger bike in terms of size range. It means that you can control your body weight forwards and aft, especially on those fast technical sections. So Bros hardware, Specialized firmware, yes. It's all about the communication between the controller, the battery and the motor, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the whole system, how it plays together. And if you're curious what the difference is, or what the spices that we add to that to the mechanicals is, it's the feeling. It's the hardware we get from Bros, or we ask Bros to manufacture our specification. We've also modified the hardware a little bit, where we developed together with them a frame interface that allowed us to make the frame better, because we couldn't otherwise drop 400 grams off the frame by not asking them to modify the hardware for us. Yeah. But in terms of communication protocol, it's the battery, the display, and the motor, how they interact together. It's sending the information about the power input, the amplification, the right amount of power at when you need it, the trail feeling. Yeah. I keep saying, it's like everybody can buy a guitar, but we know how to play this guitar.
To go internal or external when it comes to battery placement has been a big worry and concern with the bike manufacturers over the last few years. But come on, look at that. That down tube was simply meant to house a battery, right? The Levo's battery is easy to access, easy to dismount, and visually, well, visually it says it all. Classic mountain bike shape and form has not been lost with this bike. It never has been. But remember, this bike is much, much more potent, and that battery is estimated to take you up to 2,500 meters of climbing in eco mode. How have you managed to balance that whole thing about power versus range? Because it's really important, right?
It's very difficult because adding more range is not that easy. Honestly speaking, adding more range means coming up with new ideas how to pack the cells together and maybe use new cell technologies to make bigger battery packs. It's quite difficult actually.
Yeah. So what are we talking with this new bike in terms of range and climbing?
Well, you know, we add a power, right? On top of that, we had a 40% more battery. With more battery, I mean, if you keep riding in eco mode,
Yeah.
which means you use the same power as we once had back in the day, you can go 2,400 meters climbing eco mode, right?
Right, yeah.
And
And
if
you've
you-
tested that, right?
Yeah, we've tested that for real. Yeah, it was a long day.
It becomes evident very quickly how much more lively this bike is over the old Levo. There's definitely a bit of life in that suspension, and the chassis is definitely tighter than the old version of the bike. But what strikes me first of all is how clean this cockpit area is. There's no cables, no clutter. Look at the display, it's been moved down onto the top tube rather than on the side of the bike, which means it's super stealth. Actually, you can turn the LEDs off on this bike, so if you're riding in the dark, there's simply no lights at all. So everything's to hand, all the power's right there, and you've got this detachable display should you need to use one. It's $89 aftermarket, and it's got such things as your power output, your heart rate, and yeah, look how thin it is. The good thing with this is it's not integrated into the bike, so if you break it, then the bike still goes. And remember, Mission Control has had a ground up rework too. The Mission Control app has always been an integral part of our riding experience on Levos and Canevos. In many ways, it simply gives you the opportunity not just to analyse, but to relive that ride experience. The first 15 miles on the Levo left me totally breathless, partly due to the company I was keeping and partly due to the fun I was having. The range meant run after run, but what factors contributed to a more comfortable, more dynamic ride on this bike? Overall, it's the suspension tune, geometry and weight loss that contribute to that ride, but also it's a much, much more complete bike than the old Levo. Remember, it's pointless having a motor if you haven't got all those elements, those crucial elements, plus things like the right componentry of the bike to enable you to get into the right places. And remember, you're going to be riding this Levo on long rides because of that increased range, so you've got to be comfortable on this bike.
So we try to take everything we learned from mountain bike development and push it into pedal assist bikes. So make it a mountain bike first and then a pedal bike second.
Sorry, talk us about the drivetrain on the bike.
Yep, so this is something that may be controversial when the bike comes out, but we chose to go 11 speed. And hopefully everybody understands why, and that's because of the weight savings. So there's a huge weight savings in the cassette between 11 and 12 speed, simply because of the requirement from SRAM using the NX Eagle cassette all the way top to bottom if you're running on an e-bike.
It can still get up some pretty steep stuff though, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got a peak power of over 500 watts. I mean, the range of 11 speed is limited, but you've got all these extra watts of power, so you can climb pretty much anything.
And quickly, wheel choice, you went for 29.
Tire choice is the biggest thing, right?
Really?
Yeah, when we first introduced the Levo, we had a 27.5 by 3.0 tire. We thought this is gonna be great for climbing because you got all this extra power. We want to put that to the ground, don't be sliding all over. Over the years, we kind of changed our way of thinking. With 29 by 2.6, you still got some volume, but the vagueness that the 3.0 gives, you get more trail feedback. And
so it's a far more precise ride that you're after.
Exactly, precise ride, and you get a lot more tire choices in 29.
So there it is, the all-new Turbo Levo, and I think this bike needs setting into context, not just within other great e-bikes, but within Specialized bikes of the past, ones that were quite innovative when it came to geometry. I'm thinking of bikes such as the 2004-2005 Enduro, which redefined itself in that era. And without knowing, I think Specialized probably pioneered a whole new sport, that of Enduro. That bike was big hitting, it was angry, it was super aggressive, and it was simply a dream to take into big terrain, which was previously the preserve of downhill bike, it was full on. I think this bike really does sit along other great Specialized bikes of the past, such as the Demo, the asymmetric Demo, the downhill bike, the 29-inch wheel Enduro, which really was quite a benchmark at the time and still is. This bike, Specialized, totally believe this to be a state-of-the-art e-bike. And you know what? I'm not actually prepared to get into argument. I'm not prepared to get in an arm wrestle them over that statement. So there you go. If you want to see what these e-bikes are capable of, have a look at this video here, Are E-Bikes Fast, which I did with the Don. Leave your comments below. I know there's going to be an absolute ton of them. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and great if you can subscribe to EMBN.